Testing.
Testing.
Hey, is this thing on?
1, 2, 3.
Let's see how that sounded. Okay, there goes the mic. Hi, Charlotte.
Madeline, good day.
We're back.
And welcome to the Sports Gossip Show presented by eBay.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for this episode.
Me too. We had a really great conversation with Katia Reguero Lindor, the wife of Francisco Lindor, Mets player, but also a whole lot more than that.
Yeah, it really was such an incredible conversation and so enlightening. It was just a delight. It was a delight.
It's also just really cool when you talk to someone in this space who doesn't have to be as real as they're being.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
She's like made a choice that she is going to be authentically who she is, and she's going to show up that way publicly. And that's pretty rare.
Especially for, I think, a spouse of a public figure. And she's obviously now a public figure. And for her to use her platform for good to stand up for things that she believes in it's so powerful, and I think has more impact than people realize. Yeah, honestly,
especially in a more conservative sport like baseball.
Yeah,
it's just really great. So we hope you enjoy our conversation.
She is the wife of New York Mets star Francisco Lindor. She is a violinist and uses her platform to discuss her life as a mom and highlight social issues that affect her and her community. She is also the host of the bilingual parenting podcast, The Unaparent. Please welcome to the Sports Gossip Show, Katia Reguero Lindor.
Woo! Katia, thanks so much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. I'm a fan of your work as well. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. We're honored.
Anytime someone says, I'm like, oh, so you heard it? You know, like, because we're just in a room together, and then I'm like,
with our little paper sign behind us that always falls. Love it.
Where are you coming to us today? Are you in Florida for spring training?
Yes. We live in Florida, like home base. My husband went to school out here, and when it was a boarding school, he moved when he was like 13. He didn't speak any English when he moved here, but kind of made a life out here for himself when he signed and had the money to kind of move out. The rest of his family, he brought his mom, and so this is sort of like our home base, our community. Right now, it's Orlando, right? There's a lot of Puerto Ricans in Orlando. Those who've been here know that I think there's actually more Puerto Ricans in Orlando than in the island right now.
Oh my God.
And it's close enough. My parents still live in Puerto Rico, so it's like a close little flight. But yeah, so thankfully spring training is here in Florida, so we don't have to move before we move for the season. Technically.
So how much of the year do you spend in Florida?
I would say a majority of it, because now spring training's being in Florida, we can stay home for a little longer. So we're here basically mid-October or November through maybe it's until beginning of April, whenever the season starts.
Cool. And Francisco plays for the Mets. We are based in Brooklyn. What part of New York do you guys live in when you're here?
We're in Manhattan. We're there. My best friend lives in Brooklyn. I actually have a few people who live in Brooklyn, and I love the Brooklyn area. So whenever I can get out there, it's obviously hard to with 3 kids.
Yeah.
But, I try to do everything in within a few blocks of me, because if I can avoid a long commute with 3 little kids, I do. But I do love the Brooklyn area. So whenever I go, I'm just like, it'd be so cool to live here. But
understandable with 3 young kids. So obviously a lot of people know you via your husband, but we want to talk about you and what you are known for. For people who may not know your story or your background, can you walk our listeners through who you are in your own life and your own interests?
So I don't know how far back people are interested in, but for those who are, I'll start sort of way back. I grew up in Puerto Rico. I was born and raised there. I was homeschooled my whole life. So I never actually went to a traditional school up until I moved away. When I went to college, I actually went to university in Texas, in San Antonio. And that was around when I met my now husband. But I played the violin since I was 4, right? So I grew up with music that was my life. And we traveled 2 hours for my violin lessons because I didn't grow up in the capital in San Juan. I grew up in Aguadilla, which is northwest tip of the island. It's like a beach town. I grew up going to the beach, around nature. It was a beautiful upbringing, I would say. My mom and my dad did such an amazing job raising us and kind of instilling in us, those values that I carry into my day, I try to carry into my day to day, you know, but now as a mom, it's just, I'm more acutely aware of how they raised me and those values that I kind of maybe took for granted, but they just were part of who I was as a part of my life. And now raising kids in a completely different kind of timeline and society and kind of just different lifestyle, you know, just that's it. Like we have privileges now that I never had growing up. So it makes me acutely aware of the example I'm setting for my kids and what kind of, you know, lessons I want them to learn. And so, yeah, fast forward, I met my husband and I was a senior. He was in Arizona on spring training at the time. He was still with Cleveland. And so, yeah, within a year of us starting to talk and date, you know, we had our first child, we got married, and now we have 3 kids. And
Wow.
we're now, you know, in New York for part of the year.
So cool. You mentioned your values, and something that we've been really excited to talk to you about, because, you know, here on our show, we don't believe that you can separate politics from sports. Obviously, we have a good time. We don't want it to all be like serious or on a soapbox, but if you have certain values, it kind of bleeds into everything. So, you know, we were wondering, baseball can seem, at least from the outside, to be conservative a little bit. And we were wondering what your experience has been being more vocal as someone coming at things from a more left point of view.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I refrain from mentioning, you know, my husband's organization or the team he plays for, just because I feel like I don't talk about sports that much in my day-to-day life. I'm obviously invested in like his career and how he does and the team, and I love baseball. I grew up with baseball. It's a huge sport in Puerto Rico. But also, you know, I don't see it as separate from society. I see, if you live in society, no matter what your degree of education is, no matter what your income is, no matter what your job is and what your career is, you are part of society. And whether you want to or like it or not, that is informed by policy and politics and history, you know? And so I think it is historically illiterate to say that politics and sports, you know, don't mix or shouldn't mix, because they do, you know? It does cause a lot of backlash for me because I occupy this conservative space where I'm married to someone within that space. But I don't believe that should prevent me from having a life and opinions outside of what he does, right? And I am very cognizant of not wanting things to affect him negatively, or, you know, he's been very much, I don't talk about politics. He doesn't talk about it publicly. He honestly doesn't really like talking about it privately in our life either. He humors me when I want to talk about it, and he listens to me, and he has different opinions for me in you know, some ways, not in like fundamental human values, but, you know, we disagree on things like most people do. And so, you know, I have that like sometimes uncomfortable realization that, well, he chose to marry me, and unfortunately that has caused some people to think X or Y about him when it's all me, you know? I'm my own person, and he is beautiful in the way he supports me. Whether he, you know, agrees with me or not, he just loves that I have my own voice and my own belief system that I can carry out in the form of my podcast or my social media. And he always wanted to be married to someone who, you know, our kids could look up to and be like, hey, you know, that's my mom. That's her work. That's what she's done, you know? And it's taken form in being outspoken about subjects that are sadly polarizing, because I don't try to be divisive or polarizing. On the contrary, my whole stance is unity and love and humanity, right? And obviously people that don't agree with me want to misconstrue what I say. That's part of it. And I've come to accept that that's just like the nature of being in the public eye, that people are going to want to misconstrue what you say. And yeah.
Do you find, that's really interesting you say all of that. Do you find that with social media and being in the public eye, that you feel like you have more of a responsibility to speak up and use your platform to speak out for things that you care about and you are, dear values that you hold closely? I'm just curious for you if the kind of the rise of social media and just being so public, now you're married to a professional athlete, has impacted how you think about speaking up for issues online. I know you're so vocal, but I'm curious if that's something that comes into mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I did grow up with 2 attorney parents, so we always had very heated debates and discussions. So we've always been passionate about, a lot of the topics that I do talk about nowadays. Then it feels a lot more like a responsibility having the platform and the privileges that I have now that I didn't, as I say, I didn't grow up with. And it's like I think about it from the perspective of me still being that little girl growing up in the family that I grew up in, right? Like that's still who I am in many ways, obviously in very tangible ways. I have the privileges of not having to worry about a lot of the topics that I advocate for in everyday life, right? Financially, those financial burdens that are very real for my family, my parents, middle class families. I care deeply about that. That is the lens through which I was raised and I grew up. And even though obviously lens shift depending on like what your current experiences are, that doesn't mean that you forget where you came from or who you are or who raised you and the people that surrounded you, that still surround you, because those are the people that I still keep around in my life. And I care so deeply about them. And I can't separate them from other middle class families that I, know or that don't know, neighbors. And this term that's been coined more recently, or that's brought back, I'm not sure when it was originally coined, but like neighborism, right? Where like you care about your neighbor and you go out and you defend and you support the human rights and dignities of your neighbor, whether it's your neighbor next door or your neighbor back home in Puerto Rico or your neighbor across the world, who's experiencing hardships that even if I don't have to experience them, that doesn't invalidate my right and my responsibility to uplift those voices.
Yeah. I mean, that's really special though, Katia, because it's much easier to, when you're in a position like you're in and you are financially stable and you're in the public eye, it's a lot easier not to say anything. And so I really admire, we both do, how you haven't lost sight of who you were before and how that is still who you are. And I think our country would be a lot better off if a lot of people had the ability to remember what that was like and to empathize with other people. In terms of the political side of things, we were so excited when we saw that you were on Mayor Zohran Mamdani's inaugural committee. How did that come about? Like, what was your role in that space?
Yeah, I mean, that was just kind of a serendipitous thing. I actually got a DM from someone on his team saying that, they really liked my work on my podcast, uplifting, just the struggles of motherhood and being a mom in a society where there's just so little support, right? And so it was through my work of my podcast that I guess my platform was brought to their attention, and they just, asked if I would be willing to be on the inaugural committee, which essentially was more of a symbolic thing, right? I didn't actually have a position in the mayor's committee of actual, decision making or anything like that. It was more symbolic, and it was an invite to the inauguration itself, which I was, lucky enough to attend, and it was so cool. I mean, despite the cold, actually
it was so cold that day.
It was freezing. And, I'm an island girl through and through, so like cold and But I sat through that cold, and there was still such a warmth in that crowd despite the cold. And I remember the poet who said a very beautiful poem that day. He did say a joke before he mentioned that surely people were asked throughout Zohran's campaign if they thought he would win, and someone must have answered when hell freezes over. And well, here we are. And I remember
really
that
good.
I laughed and I was like, I was like so cold, but I was like, that's really funny.
Yep, that's amazing. I mean, what an incredible opportunity.
Yeah.
You mentioned your podcast. I would love to hear the backstory of what inspired you to start your podcast. Because I think this parenting space is so interesting. In a past life, I used to work at a company and worked on this book called Fair Play, all about unpaid labor in the home and dividing household tasks fairly. And so I'm always fascinated by the parenting space. So I'm curious for you, as a mother of 3 children, what inspired you to start that podcast?
Also, real quick, Unaparent. Yes. Brilliant.
Great name.
Brilliant.
Great
title.
name.
Really, really 10 out of 10.
Thank you. My producer and my good friend, and she's a multi-hyphenate person behind the scenes, Marina. She's the one who has helped me bring this to life. It started with an idea when I was experiencing my first postpartum stage, where I later, realized I was experiencing postpartum depression.
Mm-hmm.
But it was this lack of community that I felt just informed so much of my, I guess, where these ideas stemmed originally were just, I wanted to create a community for new moms like me who had felt also a bit isolated in their experience as becoming a mom for the first time, because there's so little that prepares you for motherhood. I mean, there are books you can read and information you can just, devour, and none of that will prepare you for motherhood, honestly. Just living living the experience is what will really make you, comprehend it fully. But to me, I didn't have any close friends that were becoming moms for the first time. I was one of the first of my close friends to become a mom. And so I felt like I lacked community. It was COVID time, so there wasn't really a lot to go out and do. But it just felt so isolating, even though I had real support in the form of like a husband and loving family members. And I had my midwives. It was an incredible team of people I had around me. And I was still struggling emotionally. And so I thought, if it's me with so many privileges and tangible support, I can't imagine moms who don't have partners, who don't have the support system, who don't have a village experiencing this for the first time. That must feel so hard. And so, I wanted to create this sort of space and community that I thought I lacked, that I knew I wasn't the only one. I'm like, I can't be the only person, experiencing this. And so the idea of a podcast came about. And as I said, Marina, from day one helped me bring it to life. And we've grown in so many ways together. And me as a mom, I started as a first-time mom, and now I have 3 kids. And it's just, parenting is one of those things that you're never going to reach a point where you're like, I've mastered it. Like, you're never going to master it. So there's always going to be more to learn and more to discover, more to talk about. And it's an intersection of society about, there's social justice issues that come into play, and there's, politics, and there's just life in general. Everything becomes so much more pressing when you're a parent, because you are even more aware of the injustices in the world and of what kind of world you want your kids to grow up in. And so if I'm not actively participating in the kind of world I want them to inherit, then what am I doing as a parent, And so, it's grown beautifully and it's flourished. And I have grown from the work I've done, but also just being a parent is all consuming. And my, that passion project that I needed, that was separate from my kids, but also had everything to do with my kids, became, the Unaparent.
And do you feel like, have you found that community you were looking for through the show? I mean, we, as 2 people who have also started a show, I mean, it's really like, it takes a lot. So I love that you said how it's grown and sort of grown along with your kids. It's like your 4th kid, this show. Have you heard from people who you might not have talked to otherwise?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think it's brought an audience that I maybe would have otherwise had, and an audience that connects to me at a deep level, which is all my intention. Like, I always want to my goal is just, this is authentically who I am, what I'm living through. And if you relate and can connect, here I am. And so it brings the right kind of people, right? Because if you're not interested in this, it's kind of a niche, like not everyone's going to be interested in like what I have to say. But if they are, it's going to automatically bring, I think, a deeper connection, which is what I'm all about. I don't really like a superficial, like, you can be friendly with anyone online and that's fine. That's great. But that deep connection of, understanding of like, I see you, you see me, we get each other. It definitely has brought, so many amazing people into my life that I wouldn't otherwise probably maybe connect with. And also the other element of it is like being married to who I am. People could always want to be around you for the wrong reasons, And so it has become increasingly harder to kind of decipher those like genuine people from the not so much ones. And even though I think we have a sixth sense as women many times, I'm still a very open person, and I'm always like ready to see the good in people, right? And so I've learned the hard way that you shouldn't always, sadly. But at least from this space, I've met some really solid, awesome people.
Yeah. What's it like? You mentioned, being married to a professional athlete and parenting at the same time when one partner is on the road for a significant chunk of year. I'm sure, people who have partners who are on the road in any industry, really, this could apply to. But I'm curious, what set of challenges or benefits have you found having a partner with, a very non-traditional job? And he's on the road for a significant portion of the year while you're also being a parent and managing all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I will always say and repeat over and over, it takes a village, because me by myself, I would be actually probably not able to do this, right? I would literally have 3 kids running around. One of them is in a stage where, the baby, he's crawling, he's trying to walk, he's putting everything in his mouth. It's like preventing him from committing suicide on the daily, right? So I need someone constantly watching him.
Right.
My parents are in town right now. I've gone over the hump of hiring a babysitter for the, when I had 2 kids, I was still like, no, I don't need a babysitter. I can do this by myself. It's my job. I'm a mom. And I've had so many people, be like, you need time for you, and if that means hiring a babysitter, because unfortunately my parents don't live, nearby, so be it. And I had to come to those terms by myself. I'm very hard-headed, but like, when I got pregnant with my third, I was like, oh, I was so, there was no way I really could to realistically do it while maintaining some semblance of mental health, by myself, and again, that comes back to why I'm so vocal about the, just paid maternity leave and having, accessible childcare, because how does one do it and I say how, my mom did it by herself. Like, I have plenty of examples of mothers who did it by themselves, but I've talked to her ad nauseum about how I felt like she did everything for everyone, and she was incredible, and I have nothing negative to say about her. But I do think she was spread so thin that she was just emotionally unavailable at times, just by nature,
Yeah.
And so I went on a tangent, but all of this to say that my husband, when he's home and he's present, it's such a game changer, because it's like, whew, it's like, okay, I've got the other parent here. It's not the same thing when you're like, you can have a babysitter, it helps out and whatever. But when you have the other parent, that they are being loved by the 2 people in their lives that they long for, really. And, having aunts and uncles is just incredible, because they can come in and, take over for a little bit, and they feel that love also. But I think my tolerance for chaos and just hard times has just expanded throughout the years. Because you asked me when I just had 1 kid if I would ever have 3, I'd be like, heck no. Like, it's hard enough with 1, but somehow our tolerance just expands, and we end up just accepting and embracing that this is a phase. It's a period in our life. Our kids won't be small forever. The challenges will be different. They always say with older kids come more complex challenges, but they're not the same kind of like all-consuming every day at all times kind of thing. So I think right now, because I have 3 little kids, it feels really hard. Like, the days feel very long, but the years feel so short. And so, I will always just give so much credit to the people in my life that support me and that are around me and accept me with my kids. So I usually don't leave my kids behind. So it's like, if you want me to come, I'm bringing my kids with me, and I know childless people might be like, maybe not, but I have so many good friends that are just like, the more the merrier,
Yeah.
they love me,
Yeah.
they love my kids. And that's, that's really important because society can be so kind of anti-children, which
Yeah.
I've come to learn that means that you're anti-mother too, because
Mhm.
how can you separate the two?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, yeah. Unfortunately, there are a lot of hypocrites who, say they're pro-life and then won't give paid maternity leave or free childcare, or any of the things that would actually make that more possible. Katia, we ask all of our guests at the end of the show for their favorite sports gossip story of all time, but we'll give you a second to think about it, because I do want to ask one more thing before we get there, which is, what is something that you think would surprise people about being married to a professional athlete?
I mean, I don't know if this would surprise them, and I've also been vocal about this, but it's really not glamorous.
Yeah.
It's not at least not the way we do it. It's a lot of time that you have to sacrifice that you could be together, right, for their careers,
Mhm.
It's one of those things where you think you know what you signed up for until maybe you've like lived multiple full seasons of it, and you're like, oh really, like the off season is not really the off season, at least not for my husband, because he grinds during the
Yeah.
off season just as much. So the only difference is that he's not doing the every other week travels.
Mhm.
It's more of a like more traditional 9 to 5 maybe, but in his case like more like 6 a.m. to like 5 p.m. right, where he's working out, he's practicing, he's taking ground balls, he's batting, it's constant baseball all year round. And so the off season sounds in theory like, oh, you get to do whatever you want all season long.
Right.
No.
No.
And I think it's because I didn't just marry any professional athlete.
Right.
I think I married someone with the drive and the discipline of just. I always assumed every athlete was like that, but I've come to realize maybe not every single one. Like he
Yeah.
he has so many sponsorship deals that he has to also take care of, and commercials and photo shoots, and all so many things that come into play that you're, I guess, don't really realize until years go by, where you're just like, yo, I haven't really gone an off season where I can say like, yeah, we've just chilled, like
Yeah.
Right.
maybe
What
for a
w-
day or two.
Right. What was it like early on when you started dating? I understand. Is it true that Francisco slid into your DMs? That was kind of the beginning of your
Yes.
very, very 21st century, I will say.
Yes.
I'm curious for you, what was it like in that first season, like adjusting when you're dating someone who is a professional athlete who, does not have a traditional 9 to 5? Was there any sort of learning curve in terms of like, okay, when do we figure out when we're having a date? Are we FaceTiming? Are we Zooming? Like you're on the
Well,
road?
Am I throwing baseballs to you?
Yeah, like what are we warming up? What's going on?
I think that was the hardest part of transitioning from dating to then like living together with a kid and
Yeah.
like married and all of that. Because when you're dating, it's like you have a good idea, or you think you do, of like their lifestyle, but you're not like living in, because it's sort of still long distance, right? Like I would
Right.
I would visit him probably every month. I would come visit him, sometimes twice a month. But I was like I was working. At first I was a student, but then I graduated, I was working. And so it's like I got glimpses of his lifestyle, So I would go on certain road trips, or when he was like at home in Cleveland or whatever. And so I'd travel in, I would do the lifestyle for a little bit. And obviously, because I was only visiting for a weekend or 3 or 4 days, I'd go home. It's like that felt really doable, right? Because it's like, yeah, and it's fun and it's exciting, and it's
Yeah.
almost like it's very new, right? And then, but I'm not living that 162 games of the year, right? I'm kind of like away doing my thing, and then I come back and visit. So then realizing when you're living in and then living through spring training, which is all like, it's on early morning, and then you shift to season, which is all evening, like games are usually 7 p.m. and then they don't get home till late. And this was before the pitch clock. So then
Right.
games were ending at like
Really
midnight. And I'm just
Important
like,
distinction.
whew, this is exhausting.
Yeah.
And then you do the travel, and then you're home, and I'm lonely. And So it definitely is different. The dating, it feels a lot more like exciting. And then living it is like, oh, this is reality. Okay.
I think that's
a lot harder.
Probably relatable for people who aren't married to baseball players too, though.
It's always a transition no matter who you're dating.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you found a sense of community amongst the other partners of baseball players because your experience is so unique and you've been able to kind of find some sort of shared camaraderie and are able to kind of support each other with this unique lifestyle that you have?
Yeah, definitely. You know, when you make friends on the team that you connect with deeply, I would say that's rare because that means that beyond our connection to baseball, we have a personal, like, you know, deep connection as people. So those are a little bit more rare. And I have, you know, a handful of incredible, you know, people I've met through baseball. But yeah, just having that shared experience additionally of like the baseball life, which really only, you know, we can understand it fully, especially when you meet other moms in the space who are experiencing similar things, you know, the lifestyle, the dad's being gone, and then us raising kids, you know, half of the time by ourselves, basically. It is a tight-knit community in that we can really get each other at different levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you said, you know, being, you know, a space that I wouldn't say that everyone I meet are my best friend, and that's fine. But again, meeting those people that, and then they know who they are, that, you know, we really connected and we get each other, you know, that's rare, but that makes it that much more special.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Katia, we have to ask you, what is your favorite sports gossip story of all time?
As in like your show, Sports Gossip?
Oh, no, sorry.
Like any, so
like off the field
just
story.
anything that you like. For example, you know, Tiger Woods smashing the golf club. It could be that. It could be a funny story that you heard either in baseball, in another sport, or just anything that you're fascinated by that has some kind of sports adjacent connection that has to do with off the field narratives.
I did not tee that up correctly.
You were like, Katia, you need to know everything that happened on our show.
What's your favorite episode we've ever
Compliment us.
I was about to say our episode is probably my favorite.
Yeah, obviously, of course.
That's a pop out. No, I gotta give you a good answer. So I'm really, as I said, mostly into, you know, baseball. And it's kind of like, I think the funniest rumor going around is that I have enough power to destabilize an entire clubhouse of men, apparently.
What?
That's that's a lot of the hate I'm getting, that my politics ruined the clubhouse last year, which is completely false. But it's kind of funny to think about how the patriarchy is so alive and well that a woman that hasn't even been in the room to make decisions, to be part of a community of men and grown men who can think and act for themselves, by the way, has the power to, like, that really is, it's enlightening. Like, oh, men really fear women that much that they would blame me for something that I can't take credit for in the slightest. But, you know.
Oh my God.
That's wild.
That's crazy.
It's true, though. It really is. It's a testament to how terrifying men think women are, that they think that your political views have the power to completely, and also what a stupid thing to be.
Right.
Oh my God.
The people who believe that probably also believe that the earth is flat. Not gonna lie.
You know, listen, that there may be some overlap there in terms of interest.
Venn diagram.
Yeah. Well, Katia, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate you taking the time. Where can people find you?
So my personal Instagram is at Katia.Lindor, and my podcast is The Unaparent. And if you want to listen to the podcast, we're on all listening platforms. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. So thank you guys for having me on the show. I enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you, Katia.
We did too. Thank you so much.
Oh, how great is that?
I love how after every guest you go,
but every time they're so great.
I know.
We get such good answers from people, and people give such insightful answers. I said answers twice, but it's true.
It's
Like
true.
she just really, it was so interesting and fascinating to learn about what her life was like before, obviously becoming a public figure and being married to a professional athlete, but then how she's been able to use her platform to speak up about injustices in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And then also her last answer was super fascinating.
Could not.
Oh my
when
God.
she was like, oh yeah, the rumor that my politics are tearing apart the Mets clubhouse.
I was like, what?
When she said the patriarchy is alive and well, I was like, that's metal. I was
Metal.
like, let's go, Katia.
Yeah.
Yes, really, really cool. We will definitely be going to a Mets game.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's going to happen.
Definitely going to do that. I am, lifelong Mets fan,
Yeah.
along with my Knicks.
Right.
As we talked about. On the
Can I
show.
ask you, not to put you on the
What?
spot,
What?
did you just decide that?
No, I said that before. We've talked
You
about
did.
this.
Sorry. You chose
For
a
those who
baseball
don't
team.
know, if you're a newer shareholder or this is the first time you've ever listened, I grew up in Atlanta, but I said I didn't feel a spiritual connection to the Braves anymore.
Mhm.
And so when I moved to New York, I was like, am I a Yankees or a Mets fan? And then I just felt energetically in my soul, I'm like, I'm a Mets fan.
Even though
It's-
you do like the mock.
Well, I do like the mock neck. No offense to the Mets, but I do like the mock neck on the Yankees. But there's something spiritually connected, I feel, with the Mets in the same way I do with the Knicks, in the same way I do with the Bills.
basically
It just feels right for me. And so, yes, I am now officially, as I've said before, a lifelong Mets fan.
you're like, what team is going to blow it?
No, hey, never know.
You never know.
You never know.
There's always next year.
Uh-oh.
Well, thank you to everybody who listened. Thank you to Katia for coming on.
Yep.
Also, if there are any other significant others of athletes who would like to talk to us,
Hey.
our phone lines are open.
Yeah, you can email us at info@sportsgossipshow.com. You could send us a DM on Instagram @sportsgossip or TikTok @sportsgossipshow. And if you're a shareholder or if you're a WAG and you want to just like and subscribe, rate, and review just for funsies,
Oh, yeah.
that would be fabulous.
We would love it.
Yeah, it would be great. And we will be back on Tuesday.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.